Welcome to this introduction to the Cadcorp SIS WebMap 9.1 integration for Microsoft Power BI. This integration allows you to embed a web map into a Power BI dashboard or report, providing that location intelligence and insight to gain a better understanding of your data. In this video, we'll explore the setup for embedding a map with the Cadcorp visual and show some sample reports at the end to show the different visualization options that are available. Before we look at the integration in action, I want to share some of the benefits of the integration. The key benefits include support for displaying all feature types. That includes points, line strings, and polygons. These features can be displayed with dynamic colors for theming by attributes, and you can also display graduated circles for point datasets. It supports your data in both OSGB eastings and northings and latitude and longitude coordinates. That will help reduce the need to transform data for Power BI. And for customers in Great Britain, it supports the display of Ordnance Survey mapping, helping you keep a consistent map base across your mapping platforms. So let's now take a look at the integration. The integration consists of two components. The first is a web map, and the second is a visual file for Power BI to enable the web map to be embedded into your dashboard or report. The source of the embedded map for Power BI is Cadcorp SIS WebMap. This is our off-the-shelf web mapping application. You publish a map in this environment that you wish to embed within Power BI. Include the background map and any additional data layers you wish to display in the embedded map as read-only layers. You need to take a note of the web map URL and also the name of the published map. You will need these to configure the integration. We offer different hosting options for WebMap, so please get in touch using the contact details at the end of the video to find out more. Let's now switch to the desktop client for Microsoft Power BI. So the first step is to connect to your business data. So let's access the Get Data wizard. Power BI offers many options depending on the source of your data. My sample dataset today is stored in a Postgres database. So we're going to make a connection to the database to access the data. The data sample I'm using today is property data. This is a point dataset and includes energy performance information. We're going to use the search at the top to narrow down the tables listed. I'm going to select the table that I want to load into Power BI. To visualize the data on the embedded map, the data needs to include coordinate information. For point datasets, you need either OSGB eastings and northings or latitude and longitude coordinates. At the end of this specific dataset, we have two separate columns displaying the eastings and northings for the data. If you wish to display line string or polygon features, you need a column containing the GeoJSON description for these feature types. The Cadcorp Online Help provides instructions on how to prepare your data for Power BI. I'll now select Load to add the data into Power BI. We can now see the data is loaded into Power BI. To support the integration, Cadcorp provides a visual file. Under the visualization pane, select the three dots, import a visual from a file, select the Cadcorp visual, and open. You'll see the Cadcorp logo in the visualization pane. Click the logo to add the visual into your report. I'll expand the visual so it takes up half of the report. We now need to configure the visual. The first element is data under the Build Visual option. Underneath there are several variables that we need to define. The first is the coordinate information. For point datasets, we need to specify the coordinate columns in the data. These will be used to map the data on the embedded map. This is a point dataset, so I'm going to drag and cross the eastings into the eastings field, and I'll scroll down my data on the right hand side to find the northings value. When you hover over a map feature, a pop-up can display values in the data. This is the map tip option. This can include single or multiple values. So I'm going to use the address field. If you want to display line string and polygon features rather than the point items that I'm using in this example, the GeoJSON field here is where you specify the column in your data which contains the GeoJSON description. You configure this field instead of the eastings and northings for these feature types. Then underneath, we have some thematic mapping options. Dynamic point size is for point datasets. You can display a graduated circle based on a value in the data. The larger the number, the larger the circle. Dynamic color can be used for all feature types. You can display different shades of color based on a value in the data. I'll show you some example outputs at the end of the video. Now that the data is configured, we now need to configure the embedded map. So right at the top, we're going to go to Format Your Visual and Access Map Settings. So this is where we need to tell the visual where to get the map from. The map is hosted by WebMap, and we need to define the URL for WebMap. Then underneath, we need to provide the name of the map that we want to embed within the visual. My map name is called Local Authority. Underneath, you've got some additional options to format the map. You can add a scale line, you can add pan zoom controls, a layer switcher for turning on those read-only overlays, and you can enable zoom when filtering. This controls if the map zooms when the data is filtered. We can see with those settings that we've applied, we now have our map. We've got Ordnance Survey mapping in the background, and we have these orange circles representing the property and EPC data that I loaded within Power BI. There are additional settings. Under Map Tips, you can change the format of the map tips. So as I hover over an item on the map, we can see the display of the address. In here, you can format that pop-up, and you can also prefix the values with the column names. Then underneath, you've got options for styling the data. The options are similar for both. So let's access point styles. So the default color is the main style. So at the moment, we can see it's orange. We can use a color palette here to change the color. You can also apply some transparency to the selected color as well. There are also color options underneath for when you select or hover over a feature. And then underneath, you can modify the radius of the circle. So here it's currently set to 10. If I change it to 8, we'll see those circles reduce in size. Then underneath, if you're using the dynamic point size option for graduated circles, you can specify the minimum and maximum radius size. Then underneath, we have two options which are used for the dynamic color option. You can specify how many shades of color you want to use. So that concludes the configuration for the Cadcorp SIS WebMap integration with Microsoft Power BI. I will share with you some example maps using some of the other options I've described. Here is an example of a report showing the dynamic point size option. The data is showing the location of rent arrears. The larger the circle, the greater the rent arrears balance. It can provide really useful geographical context to the data and where the problem is more prevalent. This next example is showing a display of polygon features representing lower super output areas, and the dynamic color option is being used to provide different shades of color based on a value in the data. In this example, this is the index of multiple deprivation and fuel poverty, providing valuable insight into our communities. You can also include multiple maps in one report. The maps will also respond to any slicers or drill downs you perform with the Power BI visuals. So if I use a slicer at the top of this visual to focus on a particular area, we can see that the map has also responded to the slicer alongside the other Power BI visuals. And then for the last example, I wanted to share how the additional data layers can complement the data you're reporting on within Power BI. With the layer switcher enabled, I can view additional read-only layers in the map and choose to toggle between them on the map using the layer switcher. And that brings a close to this video, providing an introduction to the Cadcorp SIS WebMap 9.1 integration with Microsoft Power BI. If you would like further information, you can go to the Cadcorp website or contact us by email or telephone.